Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of ABCDE organized by the team at HR at 8 p.m. ABCDE stands for Academia, Business, Consulting, Development and Entrepreneurship. Every Friday evening, we bring you food for thought for you to enjoy sitting at home. The topic for the day is redefining matrices for your scorecards. Many of us would like to know what changes will happen in the new normal after this COVID era. The expert speaker for the day is Mr. Sujoy Banerjee, a well-known person in HR circles. He will be introduced to you shortly by Avani Vansia, who will be the moderator. Avani is DGM Talent Management, TQM and OE at L&T Heavy Engineering. I request you all to put your mic on mute and listen. Your questions and comments are most welcome. I will sum up at the end of the session. Over to you, Avani. The floor is yours.
So good evening, everyone. I think during this COVID time, we have heard a lot of webinars. I think like Mr. Basra was saying, a lot of wildlife, HR wildlife that we have seen. And if we had to create a word cloud of what we have seen all through, I think after COVID, if one word would shine out the most would be the new normal. So without understanding what that exactly means, we have all started using as if we understand the meaning of it. But what are the processes going to be in the new normal? Are they going to change? What are the matrices going to be in the new normal? How are we going to measure our processes and effectiveness? That's the subject. Are the old processes going to continue with new matrices? Or new processes will come and we will go back to old matrices. I think that's what we will discuss today. We are honored to have with us Mr. Sujoy Banerjee, a veteran HR professional with 30 years of experience across industry sectors like automobile, tire, chemical, gases, consumer goods, industrial products, IT, pharmaceuticals, FMCG, infrastructure, construction. I don't think he has missed any. He is currently the Group Chief People Officer at Gainwell Commercial Private Limited. He did his Masters from XISS Ranchi, a recipient of NIPM Silver Medal. He is also a certified executive coach from Coaching Federation of India. He is exposed to entire bandwidth of HR processes and has played a major role in organizational transformation and managing change in his various assignments. A visiting faculty on organizational behavior and a member of the interview panel at various business schools. He has also been a speaker at various HR symposium and is a member of CII Eastern Region Subcommittee on HR and IR. I think most people on this panel know him as he has served as the president of NHRD and Kolkata chapter between 2008 to 2014. So without taking much of your time, I will hand over to Mr. Sujoy Banerjee and he will share with us the redefining matrices for our scorecards. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And in fact, it's a pretty tough wicket to bat on when you see Dr. Akhil Basra looking at your presentation with so much of intent. Because he's one gentleman I've looked up to for the last so many years since I joined the profession. He's seen me through thick and thin and advised me. So actually, Atul and Andranil and all have put me on a very sticky wicket. England is bowling there against Pakistan on a seaming wicket. So I am being played out on equally cloudy, seamy weather. And I can see various senior professionals sitting across the screen. This is one of my early experiences on making a presentation on the Zoom. I was in the HRD summit about 2 weeks back. I found it very weird, I would say the least, because I was used to making presentations when I could see my audience and see them react, see them respond, see them getting bored. And at times used to change my style or my speed, the way I used to interact with. And suddenly you're faced with a challenge where you're talking to a monitor and you are not being able to see whether the people have gone out to sleep, or they've walked off from the screen, or they're browsing through their mobile phones. So it was a big challenge, and gradually I'm getting used to it. I was just exchanging notes with Indranil about 5 minutes back, saying that I'm getting used to technology. So So that's the way, it's the biggest change which has happened in our lives over the last, say, about 150 odd days or about 120 odd days. We've been locked up at home. We've started gradually getting back to work, and life has undergone a huge change in terms of how we used to manage life, how we used to manage our work. But yesterday, while I was discussing with Avani, she asked me that, will the performance matrices change? I'm not too sure, because I'm not too convinced about that all performance matrices will change. I would like to place before each one of you all my thoughts on what I feel about redefining or rebooting the performance matrices in the post-COVID or in the so-called new normal or the new abnormal environment in which we are operating. COVID has typically been the biggest game changer in our lives. Now, keeping that as a game changer, it has impacted the global economy in a big way. People have lost jobs. Processes have got redefined. People have been challenged to work in a different ecosystem. We never thought that we'll be working from home, WFH. Now articles have been written about protocols of WFH and what we should do about working from home. But first week of March 2020, even while COVID was there in certain parts of Kerala and it was making its inroads in China, we were not aware what was in stake for us. So the global economy has taken a bit of time.
Yeah, please carry on. I'm muted.
No, the global economy took a bit of time to get adjusted to this change. We in India took time, and we are still grappling with that change. We have not been able to embrace that change in totality. We are still struggling to figure out what policies, what processes will actually work in order to make the organization be much more fitter, in order to make the organization look trimmer, in order to make the organization more effective. Companies have started believing and practicing doing more with less. Now, companies had always thought about rationalization of manpower, downsizing, voluntary retirement. These have taken place over a period of time. Now, suddenly we find organizations are rebooting their processes and revisiting their processes. They are trying to figure out that, do I need so many employees? Or were the work which we were defined, were they inflated to justify management time or existence of managers and employees? So companies have now started revisiting their org structures, revisiting their processes, going back to the basics, going back to the drawing board. HR functions across the organizations have prioritized to leap out of the current crisis. They are making various efforts. They're making a lot of changes. They're trying to grapple with how do I manage my HR processes so that in the so-called new normal, I am still relevant. I can support the organization in terms of its business strategy. The organizations are now trying to figure out, HR professionals, while they're trying to figure out what should be they doing in talent acquisition, in terms of using the digital space of AI, robotics, machine learning. How do they leverage the social media? How do they source candidates? How do they evaluate candidates? Because face-to-face interviews will be far and few, at least for the next year or so, till the vaccine comes and people feel more comfortable in traveling or conducting interviews on a physical platform. So on the other spectrum, they are looking at revisiting the entire L&D delivery model. Is my entire learning management system, my L&D delivery mechanism, is in tune with the current new normal, where people working in remote places in a connected environment. How do I deliver my training programs? So that's another piece HR professionals are grappling with. They are breaking down programs into modules of 90 minutes, 120 minutes, so that they can deliver at convenient times to their target audiences, so the retention is higher. So while this is going on talent acquisition, on learning and development, employee engagement, comes the other pillar of performance management. What do we need to do in order to ensure that the robustness of the performance management system, which used to be there, continues to be there in terms of robustness and effectiveness? That's the challenge of HR professionals. But does it mean that matrices will change? Let's talk about it. Let's look into it. Large number of organizations, depending on the sectors they operate, will have their workforces operating in the physical and digital spaces. So it will not be digital all the way. So we have gone on hyperbole, thinking that everything will be on a digital space. Everything will be working in remote, working from home. No. What happens? I was talking to Avani yesterday, and we were exchanging notes. What happens to the manufacturing sector? A company like L&T, which makes boilers, compressors, and other industrial products. Yes, you may reject the assembly line. You may improve with introduction of robotics, but then you'll still have human interventions. You'll still have human beings running on those assembly lines, or in the automotive sector, or in an organization like ours, where we sell and service Caterpillar equipments to our customers who work in infrastructure sector, or giving them backup power systems in malls, in high rises, in sports complexes, and also supporting the mining industry in terms of carrying on the mining operations in the underground or in the surface mines with companies like Hindustan Zinc, Tata Steel, Coal India. Are we going to operate totally in the digital space? No way. We cannot do it. Even when the pandemic was at its peak, even in April and May, we had customers dialing into our service engineer and saying that there's a machine breakdown in a remote part of Jammu or in a place in Uttar Pradesh where they are still operating in a small way. If there's a machine breakdown of a person who owns a machine, he loses money. So I had to send my service engineer under strict protocol to go and attend these machines. So but there are certain jobs which we have figured out can still be carried on from home. So I feel that while organizations in the ITES space are talking about going totally in the digital space, they're giving office spaces, therefore cutting down on infrastructure cost and rationalizing their cost of operations. But there will be companies which will still continue to operate in the physical space. So I strongly feel that companies will coexist both in the physical and in the digital space. Depending on the nature of the operations. I cannot expect a multi-brand outlet to have robots selling you products. You will have customer service agents on the floor. Yes, the interaction process will change. The protocols will change. So there will be process changes depending on the nature of the industry in which they're operating. So depending on the business imperatives, the workforce management strategy and the PMS framework has to be crafted out. So according to me, what is performance management in the new normal? We are using this term. Avani was very right in saying that we still don't know what is the new normal. Can we call it the new normal or the new abnormal? It's for individuals to coin it and accept it the way it is. We are getting into a workforce which is getting dispersed, distributed, and remote workforces. And it will become a reality. My HR team is not always attending office, or the marketing team is rejigging their entire style of operations. We had two teams, offline marketing and digital marketing. Now, even the offline marketing guys are looking at digital marketplaces of showcasing their product. Cars are being sold on digital platform. Heavy equipments, Caterpillar has gone on creating an e-platform where they're showcasing an excavator which costs about 60-70 lakhs. It's capital investment for any consumer or a buyer. But still, we are using the digital platform. So there is a gradual shift of certain processes from being predominantly offline or physical to a bit more of digital, and in terms of working in a remote environment, working from a remote environment. So pre-COVID-19, number of workplace analytics which were there will lose relevance. The data which used to throw up or the matrices which used to follow will lose relevance, but maybe the KRA will not, the KPI will not, but how we measure it or how we track it will undergo a change. They don't capture the disjointed realities of digital workflows, because we are looking at an environment where employees will be more connected, more empowered. They'll be working in a much more virtual teams that used to exist in IT organizations, where people used to work across different time zones in a particular project team. So people used to have, what should I say, shared accountability in terms of deliverables. So they used to link with one another in terms of deliverables. But yes, that entire model is going to flow to other sectors also, in a limited form or in a form which is relevant to that sector. So therefore, there will be a rejigging of the various matrices. If you business balance scorecard, the four pillars of finance, of customer, of internal processes, everything of learning and development of people will undergo those changes. The KPIs, the business balance scorecard will not change. The business compulsions or the business objectives will not change. You still have your KRAs being plotted on those four quadrants. But yes, the processes to achieve those leak and lagging indicators might change. And therefore, the KPIs will undergo a bit of a change. So stressed and separated and challenged to do better with less, people need greater insight into how they are doing. Because we are now in a very stressed environment. People are thinking that, is my job there? I was just reading in LinkedIn today, there was a crew member of Emirates Airlines. He's from Ireland, and he just posted on the LinkedIn stating that he got a call from, he was in Dubai, and he got a call from his Emirates office for a business meeting the following day at a particular time at 12 noon. And then he was told he was redundant. I think the world broke on his head. How will he survive? Family back in Ireland. Now he's happy. He's saying that, okay, I'm back with my family. I'm taking a new look at my life, rebooting my life. But there are people across continents, across countries, across our own nation, across states who are very stressed because they are getting challenged. They're feeling challenged that, is my job going to be falling into a redundancy basket tomorrow? So people want to be more productive, and companies will look for higher productivity. And productivity does not always mean that working longer hours. There's a small caveat as far as working from home in India is concerned. Just doing a digression for 30 seconds. When we started in early April or last week of March, we felt work from home meant answering mail, sitting in front of your laptop even till midnight. No, there is also a work from home protocol. It's like sitting in front of being available to answer to calls, to answer to mails within the working hours. If it's 9 to 6, yes, you should be available. You should have a separate space, which is difficult in India, where you can sit isolatedly with your laptop and do your official commitments. Yes, at times it's a challenge because a lot of our employees come from socioeconomic backgrounds where they cannot afford a separate room or a separate workstation, a separate place. They are fighting their work and their personal lives while they're getting challenged at home. So people are going through these dilemmas and these stresses. Now, coming back to the track, productivity will now demand more aggressive and actionable measures because people will be working not in an environment where the supervisor, the bosses would roam around and check out that, okay, are you working? Looking over the shoulder, that's going to go away. So people have to be trusted. People will have to be believed that they will deliver what they're expected to deliver. So very focused, actionable, and a service engineer in my organization will still have an average response time from a customer. Yes, the average response time now used to happen that you used to travel from place A to place B where a customer was located and resolve the problem and get a happy code like Airtel does, which gets logged into the system, which means that he's closed the call. We might now get into a model where we are talking about augmented reality, where we are working close with Caterpillar, and we'll have a dashboard or a war room sort of a thing, where there'll be dashboards and all the machines will get interconnected. I was reading an article of L&T in the construction business gone for Internet of Things, IoT, where all their equipment which they've deployed across their project sites are now interconnected so they can monitor the health and productivity and efficiency of machines. Yes. Those are the things which are technology enabled, and therefore a service engineer who used to get measured for attending to a customer equipment by traveling physically might have to sit in his room, see the IoT, see the efficiency, see the productivity, and give solutions to the customer so they can do self-service or basic service. But yes, advanced services will still require my service engineer to go there. So there will be changes, but the changes are not that radical that we'll think that, oh my God, the entire job description of the work has changed for the people. So performance management and new normal, what does it mean? Without trust and transparency, remote workforce management or remote workforce performance monitoring would appear very intrusive. You have to trust. You cannot go on always calling your employee and figuring out that, are you on your desk? Are you in front of your laptop? Have you seen my mail which I send you a second back? Or have you answered to this customer query which has come to you 20 seconds back? You have to have the faith and transparency and trust on your employees. Yes, it will be data-driven employee support. It has to be data-driven. The IT architecture of the organizations will undergo a lot of change because a lot of HR analytics will come into play with a lot of aggressive data tracking, data monitoring, and data evaluation taking place within the framework of the organization to support productivity, to evaluate performance. Companies will have to renovate their data-driven dashboards to inspire people and project teams and promote positive outcomes. It cannot be fault finding. It has to be, what I'm saying, there's to be a recalibration of the performance evaluation rhythm. The rhythm has to be more continuous. We cannot have a process which is 6 monthly or which is annually. We must have real-time feedback to employees so that they can figure out that how far they have gone, what good things they have done. So to reinforce positive outcomes, to make the organization more a high-performance organization. And high performance management depends on high performance measurement. You have to constantly measure, and show it back to the employees so that they can also see and figure out that where they are. Because the digital future of one depends on digital future of the other. That's very important. If the performance management has to ensure high performing organization, then the performance measurement framework also needs to support that. So therefore, a lot of emphasis will be on HR analytics. Throughout the HR analytics will no more be on just demography to figure out that how many people of this age group, of this ethnicity, or this skill set, or this qualification I have in my company to do my workforce planning or my manpower planning. It will be well beyond that. So the basic architecture, if it's on an SAP platform or an Oracle platform, the ERP, the maturity of IT architecture has to be beefed up substantially and in a very fast pace because we are running against time. I'm sure we're not going to have a COVID, but then we have to be agile. Something similar to COVID or some other urgency occurs, we are not caught on the back foot. We are not caught hopping on our back foot and avoiding a bouncer, go past our noses. it's very important to redefine and remeasure high performance, which may prove to be the true disruptive opportunity for post-COVID growth. The biggest cultural and organizational impact of post-COVID-19 performance management system will be, as I said, the feedback time. It has to be real time. So a lot of data processing has to happen at the heart of your IT architecture. So the processes have to be defined, the KPIs have to be defined, and data has to flow in from the businesses and the processes. So that if people are working, and if there's a sales person who is sitting at a customer place and doing a pricing, and he sends in a mail or he sends in a proposal which comes into the which comes into the head of the business, and he approves it, looking at the various parameters, it has to go back immediately. So a lot of these processes will now get digitized faster. I'm not saying companies were not doing it. Companies were certainly doing it, but I think that the cycle time has got crunched. We are not compelled to do it faster. We have to invest in beefing up our IT architecture and IT maturity. Therefore, a lot of real-time feedback, tempo, and impact has to be there in the entire performance management process. Therefore, as I said, instead of annual, quarterly, it has to be impromptu reviews. It has to be continuous feedback, continuous performance management, because that's what our colleagues within the organization ecosystem are expecting, because that also helps in motivating our people. That also helps in engaging our people. Gone are the days when you will get into a town hall, because town halls have also become virtual. We had a virtual town hall between 3 and 4:30 today with a group of our employees. So town halls where you'll have the chairman managing director flying down with his entourage and meeting the employees, having a gala lunch or a gala dinner, kaput, out of the window. So you have to constantly be in touch with the employees, give them feedback and engage with them, because performance management is also an act as an engagement tool. Beyond the standard engagement initiatives companies will take on the virtual platform. Talent and accountability-oriented enterprises will encourage and enable near constant real-time feedback. I'm emphasizing on it. Feedback has to be actionable, it has to be constructive, it has to be trackable and influential. It has to influence and motivate the people around who are in a distributed workforce in the digital space. Because each one's output is impacting the output of the other, because that is an input for the other person. So they are connected. They are more distributed, they're connected, but they're working as empowered teams. Therefore, feedback has to be actionable, has to be real-time, has to be constructive. And it has to be based on data. It has to be KPI aligned. It was there. I'm not saying that we are doing anything new. Please, for a minute, don't even think that I am saying that we're doing something very differently in the pre-COVID and post-COVID era. No, post-COVID has actually hastened the process of digitizing our performance management KPIs in a bit more structured way and a bit more robust way. And it is compelling us to look at performance management in a different organizational culture and ecosystem, because the culture of the organization again will undergo a bit of a change in this semi-physical, semi-digital work environment, because you will have people in your work ecosystem who will be your permanent employees, who will be the gig economy workers, who are equally important to your organization. So they also have certain performance output which needs to be measured. So you need to integrate this entire ecosystem's performance management into one robust framework, for which you need a lot of data, a lot of information. And this data should be flowing into the KRAs and the KPIs. I'm a strong believer of business balance scorecard, and I feel that that's the most robust way of structuring your KPIs, business objectives, into the 4 quadrants, and then monitoring them, because what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So that's going to be going to get more emphasis and focus in the days to come. So will matrices change post-COVID-19? Yes, certain processes will undergo changes, and therefore the corresponding KPIs. But not all organizations will cease to exist in the physical world, or not all organizations will be only working in the remote space. So there will be, as I said, a combination of the two, depending on the change they have done to their business processes, and the KPIs will change, but the basic objective of the organization, what is it? It's profits, it's sustainability, it's shareholder value, it's employee development, or the organization a great place to work, the financial health, it can be the economic value added. Those basics will not change. The organizational existence, the purpose of the organization will not change. The way we run our businesses, the way we run our business processes will change, and that will bring about certain changes in the deliverables which impact those processes. Given the unique situation we are in, not all roles will have the same workload as others. Therefore, a lot of roles will get redefined. When roles get redefined, the JDs get redefined or recrafted, and therefore the deliverables of the role will also get changed. When I'll just give you a very live example from my own organization. As I said, our marketing structure had two heads: a person heading the digital marketing, a person heading offline marketing. Offline marketing, I suddenly see my head of offline marketing going all guns and working with the digital guys and creating an e-marketplace, because he cannot afford to have a mela in Bihar or Uttar Pradesh to showcase his product and reach out to his customers. So what is he doing to reach out to his customers? Because customers have to be reached out to, and not all customers in this country are still smartphone oriented or have the connectivity at the last mile. So how do I reach them? That's a challenge. That's a challenge, because in India, connectivity is still a challenge. And that's why we are facing that online education is going to still be a challenge in this country. It's not metro cities where the connectivity is good, where people have tablets, where kids have smartphones. What happens in rural India? Same thing applies to organizations. Connectivity in this country is still a challenge. When I have my training people delivering programs of 90 minutes, 120 minutes, I have my colleagues in Jammu who have huge problem. Why only Jammu? In Ludhiana, in Agartala, in Bongaigaon, in Tinsukia, in Northeast. Even for a 90-minute module, they're unable to attend, and their attendance is important. What we have done is they have to go through the programs because they have to get themselves certified to get themselves eligible for a promotion. There's a career development framework they have to. So all these are the challenges which in the post-COVID area, this country and the organizations will have to grapple, manage, and overcome. So a lot of roles will change. The way my training L&D team used to deliver trainings will change. So how will I measure the quality of their output in the days to come? We are revisiting that. How will my talent acquisition team work now? We are doing digital onboarding starting from the month of June. We never thought of digital onboarding. The induction is happening across the screen. But how do I measure? Yes, the turnaround time for my talent acquisition team will still remain the same from the day the business raises the requisition to the day I put the person into the business. The basics of TAT will not change. But cost of recruitment, will it change? Cost of new hires, will it change? So while the roles are undergoing a lot of these, I would say, tectonic shifts in this new environment, therefore, the deliverables remain the same, but the processes have changed in terms of achieving those deliverables, and therefore the KPIs will change. Network collaborated organization structures will require the KPIs to be recalibrated so that the performance of individual employee is not necessarily a function of his or her own performance. Collective accountability will become more relevant, especially in jobs which are interconnected, where my output is an input for somebody else. So I would say the cliche, but it's still relevant. SMART goals in the current times. SMART goals we've been hearing from maybe the time I started my career 30 years back. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic time. Fair enough, very good. Some people say it should not be achievable. Some people say it should be beyond it. That's a point which is to be debated. But then it will gain more significance in the days to come because they'll have to be defined with greater accuracy, with greater definitiveness, and more linkage to tangible outcomes. They'll have to be more quantified because otherwise people cannot own those goals in a hybrid working environment of digital and physical. Because I see we go to office about 3 days or 2 days a week. I feel that people are still culturally and mentally trying to come out of the pre-COVID times. We have not yet come out. We have not yet come out. Therefore, the performance management process will bring about a cultural change. The cultural change in the organization has to happen to make the PMS successful. There has to be a different way of looking at performance. There's to be a different way of measuring and managing performance. The leaders, the managers will have to realign their mental makeup, have to rethink the way they used to manage, measure performance, the way they used to motivate. Those techniques will have to be revisited. They'll have to be, what should I say, like a mannequin changes its dress, they have to be dressed. So I firmly believe that the journey has begun. We are still searching and evolving the right matrices that suits various enterprises in different sectors of the economy. I just thought of sharing what I personally feel. People may not be agreeing to me. People may be agreeing to me. Let's have a discussion because I think through discussions and through enriched value-added engagements, we can evolve what should be the performance management in the post-COVID-19. And therefore, the must to make a PMS success in the new normal, what I've said all this while I'm trying to just sum it up, is establish clear goals. And once again, at the cost of repetition, I'm saying, let's have business balance scorecard. It will give more clarity and more linkage to business outcomes for organizations. I think organizations in the new normal or the new abnormal or the post-COVID, whatever it is, should aggressively embrace the business balance scorecard. I think most organizations have, and the size of the organization doesn't depend. It can be a 50 crore company, it can be a 50 crore company. The organizational objectives remains the same. The volume changes. The complexity of the processes change. So therefore, we have to create a rhythm of continuous feedback. It's like your heartbeat goes on. It has to be continuous rhythm. It has to be very, very regular. We cannot have these knee-jerk, suddenly a quarterly review or a half-yearly review, and we give shocks and surprises to employees. No. Because an agile PMS will also help in creating an agile and engaged organization. We'll have to build an excellent reward strategy, and it has to be not necessarily at the end of the year, maybe quarterly, maybe monthly, because people working in remote connected environments need to feel happy, need to feel recognized, and need to feel that their work or their output is being measured, is being monitored, measured, and rewarded. It's only by that we will have them to be more productive rather than always phoning them up or calling them up and following them up or asking them, okay, you've logged in 9 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God, why have you logged out at 5:30? No. You cannot manage or monitor performance and productivity in a policing mode. In a digital remote connected environment, you have to trust your employees. And therefore, reward and recognition will play a huge role in the PMS ecosystem so that employees believe in the PMS system and they feel engaged with the organization. As I said, very aggressive leverage of technology. Technology is going to drive the PMS process in the days to come in a much more aggressive way than it was. I'm not saying organizations are not doing it. Organizations are certainly doing it. But we have to be faster in adapting to technology as far as PMS is concerned. Yes, companies have gone into soft copies of appraisal forms. It's just not soft copies of appraisal forms. It's on-time, real-time management of performance dashboards. So there has to be a huge architecture where the data comes in, it gets sanitized. The word sanitize has a lot of relevance in today's world. So I'm using the word sanitize. It gets cleaned, sanitized, and flows into the respective boxes of KPIs so that the managers can actually work on data analytics, figure it out that what is impacting their processes and their business outcomes, and take corrective actions, take preemptive actions. Managers need to constantly engage with employees who are on remote working. Managers should not avoid the hard conversations. Managers have that problem. And typically, that's a pain area where I've been grappling for the last 30 years. I don't know what my HR colleagues across the country feel. Moment the PMS is done, it comes from the factory or the line or the branch, and you do a bell curve or you do moderation, whatever you do. And the person's rating goes down from a 4 to a 3 or from a 3 to a 2. I have done my bit. I have given you a 4, but the HR guys have actually moderated it because they work on a budget. No, that's not going to work because the employees will demand immediate feedback from you, and managers cannot avoid that hard conversation, because the moment you don't get into hard conversations and performance feedback, you're going to lose an employee's attention and focus from his or her performance and output. So what I'm saying is we will see a greater synergy between employee engagement and performance management, and an effective performance management in this hybrid model of organization working will play a very important role in creating a larger engagement quotient among the employees. So that's my humble submission to each one of y'all. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm open to learning from each one of you. Thank you so much.
I have a question. The basic
Yes.
premise is that you're extrapolating too much. Okay. Consider, for example, when there was a lockdown, people said, hey, air will become clean. As soon as the lockdown gets over, it's equally bad. The human nature, the people are so forgetful that as soon as this fear and this lockdown period ends, it will be business as usual. Okay. And but we are taking this time to speculate it. Everything will come digital. This will happen. That will happen. But I am thinking that we should not change the whole process, anticipating that this is what the new reality will be. You don't know the new reality. The new reality may still be the same old reality. All right. There is a transition period. You can say that education will go online, but I don't think it's going to stay online forever. So whatever changes and whatever decisions an organization makes, it should be a very dynamic decision. It will keep changing all the time as things progress, as things, and I think there are a lot of pundits, making merry of the time and predicting things that may not come out to be true.
Thank you, sir. That's exactly, you're resonating what's my belief, because I totally feel that things will not. What we did in the past was not all that bad that you need to be throwing out of the window suddenly because there's a pandemic. So things will, yes, what I'm trying to say is we will certainly retain what we were doing, not because we are forgetful, because we need to do them, because the business needs to do them in the pre-COVID state also. But there will be, or there may be a requirement for organizations to transition into a bit more of a digital platform for ease of business, or if they redefine their business, because if the environment demands them to do so. It should be business-driven decision, as you rightly said. The agility of the organization, the dynamism of the organization will have to be there, because 2021, at this time of the year, things may again be different. So we cannot say that it is always going to be digital, it's always going to be physical, it's always going to be in this form. The shape and form will change as the world changes. So we cannot afford to be, as you rightly said, in a state of denial, saying that, okay, things will not change beyond this, or things will not go worse than this. Things can go worse, things can be different. So we'll have to be constantly dynamic and constantly revisiting our own processes so that we are relevant to the business, we're relevant to the organization. I totally agree with you, sir.
So one related question actually, first starting with the feedback on the program. It says, Sujoy, excellent presentation delivered with conviction and lots of examples. Continuous performance feedback is inevitable. This will be done by line manager. So what's the value add that can HR add to the performance management? And if I may also add one more question, which is also related to performance management, but for a different aspect, but you may want to take both the questions together. So the other question reads, performance assessment now is going to be different to earlier. The way to do it, as well as productivity, quality, will it satisfy the HR in corporate? If yes, it's okay. If not, then how you think you will cope up with it?
Akhil bhai, thanks for the words of appreciation. That means a lot to me as an individual and as a professional coming from you. Yes, I totally agree with you that the line managers will have to be giving this constant feedback to because they have to engage. They'll have to engage with their team members. The value add which HR can do to performance management is one, to ensure that the first step is ensure the matrices are defined properly and linked to the business outcomes. In conjunction with line managers, of course, HR will not be redefining them, or it's not HR's role to define. They'll be partnering with the line managers to ensure that, and the matrices which gets measured, to ensure that the data which is getting tracked and which is getting monitored and which is getting played back to the employees is the right sanitized data, also working with the IT and ensuring that happens. But the biggest value add which I feel the HR people can do is to bring about the mindset change in line managers and the mindset change in the employees, that there's a cultural shift which is taking place in the new abnormal, new normal, whatever you want to call it, that days are gone when you're going to have a quarterly feedback, sit across the table, or on mails, or half yearly feedback, or most companies have an annual feedback system or a half yearly. Gone are the days you're going to have a real-time feedback. And how do you accept that feedback, assimilate, and go forward? Because people are not always used to a structured real-time feedback. Yes, I walk into my boss's room, my boss tells me, oh, you're doing a good job. It's a very informal way of giving a pat on the shoulder or giving a positive reinforcement. But then this is a structured rhythm which has to be followed. It has to be a discipline which has to be followed. So people need to be constantly on their toes. They have to be, what should I say? I wouldn't use a reprogram, but they have to be told to think about their managing their self and managing the performance in a much more objective way, where they can accept feedback in real time on a continuous basis. Because all feedback will not be positive.
So, Sujoy, you also mentioned about compensation. So obviously this may get linked to compensation. Do you feel that this might become too transactional?
It being linked to output, productivity, and compensation, it becomes, as you rightly said, it becomes very sort of a linear sort of a relationship.
Transactional.
But then that's where I said that while it will become transactional, the engagement, that's where exactly HR has to play a role with the line managers in ensuring that, hey guys, it is just not communicating, you've done a good job, your efficiency should have been 96.5%, you've hit 94%. It's not just data sharing. There has to be a lot of coaching and hand-holding which has to go along with this entire engagement with the employee, and telling him or her, along with the feedback, what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So that's what I'm saying. There has to be a lot of support from the line manager in terms of coaching and hand-holding with the employee, which has to happen on a real-time, continuous basis, Akhil bhai.
That's an excellent point, because what you are alluding to is that HR will raise itself to become line manager's guide.
Yes.
It's an excellent point. And many HR people are not prepared for that.
In fact, sorry, I know Mr. Banerjee would like to add a point, but just the point both of you are making, I think it makes me feel as HR professional is this is the time where we have potential HR to become almost like a line function.
Right.
Instead of just supporting line, and that potential, maybe you're right, many of us are not ready. So, Mr. Banerjee, you can suggest how do we prepare ourselves for that?
Avani, I'm passionate about what you asked me because I've heard people like many of HR leaders like Akhil Bhai, Santrup over the years. HR is just, people is just not my property. We at times take ownership that I'm the HR head, so all people related issues are my property. No, they are not. Please let go. They are the line managers people. They know them better than I do. Sitting at my corporate office, I don't interact with them. I don't eat with them. I don't sleep with them. I don't go to a movie or celebrate an Independence Day with them. I just enable my line managers to do a better job as HR managers. So the day, Avani, we accept as HR professionals that I'm not the custodian or owner of people, I think we'll let go of our false belief that we
Excellent point. Excellent point, Sujoy.
That's the first unlearning we'll have to do, Avani, all of us, that I'm there to be a facilitator to my line managers, to my, even at the Mancom meetings. I always, that's my principle. I give the inputs to my business heads. You speak. I'm there to facilitate. I'm there to make your team more effective.
True.
I'm not going to speak to them. When today in a town hall, I'll just give a very small example. Today in a town hall, our CMD was there, joint managing director, and the business head was there. I was asked to speak. I said, no, I'm not going to speak. I'm going to be the anchor for the program, nothing else. My job, because my business head knows how his guys have done in the mines of Rajasthan during the COVID period. I can use such flowery words and say, guys, you've done a very good job, which I did for 30 seconds. I'm not denying I did not. But then I knew what I was doing was something which I think my chair or my designation wanted me to do, not what Sujoy Banerjee wanted to do.
Wow.
Wonderful. I think with this, you already answered a question which was raised, which says that HR being in the staff function, do you think it will be possible for them to be on a driver's seat? And you just explained that it is possible, doable, and you just did that. With this, I'll add one more question, which I see in the chat box, which says that economy was bad in pre-lockdown period and it's likely to worsen. So HR at all levels is suffering with stress. What alignment HR professionals must undertake?
Yes, economy was bad. We expected after the elections that with a resounding majority, the new government coming in, we expected huge investments to happen. Initially, the industry was buoyant. The stock markets responded, but then starting from August, September, you found that money was not flowing in the economy. Banks were not giving out money. So economy had dried up. And while the economy was slowing down, we suddenly had COVID. Now we are seeing something called, a lot of economists are seeing a recession. Globally, UK has announced 11% degrowth in their economy, which is UK has officially announced a recession. So we were going through tough times. That has worsened. But I would not, that has worsened in terms of business imperatives. But that has also given us an opportunity to revisit and go back to a drawing board and figuring out that were we complacent when the times were good? Do we need to reboot or rejig our own processes because we are now compelled to do it because we have to stay afloat? We can take this much of a hit, not beyond that. So I think HR at this point in time, we've been talking about challenges and HR is strategic business partner. I've a lot of conferences, Akhil Bhai knows about it. HR is a strategic business partner. Why do we have to say we are a strategic business partner? We are part of the strategy. We are business. So I think HR has to get into the business a bit more, understand what makes up, how does a P&L account work? What is my cost structure? So HR can make huge contributions to the business. HR in these challenging times can make it because at the end of the day, an organization cannot survive without people. You don't have organizations surviving only on robots or androids. Even companies which are dependent on robots and androids still have people who program those robots and androids. So you need people. So I don't think HR folks should be worried that in this pre-COVID, which was bad, post-COVID, where things are going out of control, where is my existence? No, my existence is more required. And that's where we HR people have to work very closely with the stakeholders. And stakeholders out means the owners of the organizations. I know various organizations have also taken hard decisions of disbanding their entire HR folks. God bless those organizations. But exceptions cannot prove the rule. So we have to engage more closely in the SME sector. That's a challenge. I know in India, MSME sector hardly has structured HR. So therefore, there the only focus is paisa bachao, and paisa bachao means aadmi hatao. That's their only. It's basically denominator management. It's their turnover remaining same. They just cut the manpower and try to keep the ratio same. It doesn't work that way. So yes, HR professionals, maybe even bodies, HR professional bodies, need to engage with industry organizations, especially the MSME sector, and educate them, because HR, as I constantly say, is business. So HR folks, yes, some of them are going through bad times, but I'm telling you guys, in a month or two, you guys are the most sought after guys in this country.
Thank you so much. I think that's quite a positive note for us. Very, very passionate conversation. And we would have loved to keep listening to you, but I think we are constrained with time. So we would first have a vote of thanks, and then Mr. Bhatnagar will conclude with what were the key points. But the last point what you made, yes, sir, please.
Take a minute. I'll just take 1 minute, Bhatnagar sir.
Yeah.
There are 1 or 2 people who have said many organizations do not use BSc, and someone has said it requires feedback from 360 degrees. Yes, but then no also. Companies need not take the BSc in its original Norton and Kaplan form. At least try to figure out their business matrices on these 4 parameters. And they do it, I'm telling you. Everybody talks about profitability. Everybody talks about cost. Everybody talks about process may not be there, which is a leading indicator, and people may not be there. They only work on the lagging indicators of the outcomes. So I think that's where exactly we need to educate them. We need not bombard them with things like business balance scorecard. They get suddenly think that it's a HR jargon, because we HR practitioners are known to be throwing jargons. So we should not psych them out. I think there is a role we HR professionals need to make HR simple to the owners or to the entrepreneurs who own the organizations. Everybody do not work for matured organizations. So we need to engage and understand the psyche of the owner. Talk the language which the owner understands and thinks. That's what HR needs to understand. Get into the mind of the owner and sell the business balance scorecard without saying it's a business balance scorecard. And you can classify the outcomes into these 4. And I'm telling you, every owner, yes, you might say that they might say, people and all that stuff, ye tum log ka kaam hai. Gradually, let them at least classify into 3 processes. Let the 3 processes come. Don't try to bombard them that isi saal karna hai. We always get into a hurry, because I feel HR professionals are constantly making changes in organizations or making introductions for their survival.
That's it.
I think we should not do it. We should understand the psyche, the mindset of the owner where we are working, and work on him to understand what we want them to understand in a way which they will understand. And 360 degrees, yes, we can move to a 360 degrees when the organization has a maturity. It's not always cost, because 360 degrees appraisal in India has not worked out, because maturity of Indian managers to accept feedback from their people down below or even their peers is still not there. We are willing to take, because we live in a society where we've always respected the people at the top, our parents, our teachers, our gurus. So we always accept, even in a very hesitant way or in an unwilling way what our bosses tell us. Unless they're very rude, we leave a job. But then accept feedback from your team member. Oh my God, ille, you don't accept it. How can they evaluate me? They have not got so much of experience. They don't know as much as I do. Or does my peer know what is HR? That he will criticize me or he'll compliment me? When it's compliment, then I'll say, oh, he knows what HR is all about. When it's criticism, he does not even know what HR is. The most HR insensitive person in this entire organization. So Indian managers have still not mentally worked out what is 360 degrees feedback. So 360 degrees feedback can work in matured organizations. It costs money, but then we need not always depend on 360 degrees to make a business balance scorecard successful. I think Atul has been working on business balance scorecard. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Atul. Would need some inputs from you also.
Thank you. I think that answers most of, whatever points were left out. I think, yes, we as HR professionals have been blamed for using jargons and throwing it on people who are not interested in listening. But if we can just make a point such that it makes sense to the owner or the other person, that is what is important. And right now what's important is for us to capture in a small capsule what you have shared. So I would request Mr. Bhatnagar to share the key highlights of the session today. I know there were so many, but I'm sure Mr. Bhatnagar will do justice to that.
I'd start with the one question, Sujoy, because I'm now talking from the other side of the table. I was the chief operating officer, and I'm working with big teams in operations where sometimes sales and marketing are easy to measure, but operations sometimes is not so easy to measure. And with big teams, you have at any point in time some people or the other where you have to have hard conversations with. And now with it, the point that I was coming to was, look, no matter how good the manager may be, how good his communication skill may be, but when it comes to a hard, let's say, conversation, and the other person is no longer visible in front of you physically, your voice can get recorded, and there can be other implications of this hard conversation itself. And that can backfire on the manager who may be doing a decent job. But, in a physical environment, you call the guy, lock yourself up in a room and give him a dressing down, and that's it, end of story. You can use a few expressions also. But now you can't. I mean, you are talking, and then you're talking of continuous feedback. So, I was just thinking out to myself, if I were to do the same old things that I was doing earlier, I would never be able to sleep. And at the same time,
very challenging, because you're right.
Yeah.
What you can do face to face, special difficult conversation, I don't know how we'll handle across. We will handle, but it will take time and practice.
And the same time, to have an HR partner sitting with you, because you'd like to do that. I mean, the HR partner will then start working on, look, these are your let's say, areas of development for which we need to now work on. Because otherwise, the manager and the employee have had this discussion in a digital space. Then the manager has to convey the same thing to the HR guys. Then the HR guys will have to again get in touch with the employee. There's too much of, let's say, in lost in conversation. So how do you propose that? I was a little, scared thinking of my own self in this kind of an environment, and to have managing continuous feedback and having my bosses and the board reporting, all kinds of stuff. So I don't want to be in this job, So, how would you make my life easier? That was the question.
Bhatnagar Sahab, it's a very tricky question, because yes, in today's world, there is this threat or danger of recording of conversations, which can be made viral on social media, which can go public, and organization image, the manager's image and the organization image also gets tarnished. Yes, hard conversations typically, yes, what we used to do in a physical environment, room mein bula ke thoda gali galoj bhi kar dete the, aur thoda a pat on the shoulder, maybe gali galoj ke baad. But that hard conversation, the script has to change a bit. Yes, the managers will have to be a bit more as you rightly said, guarded, but at the same time without mincing their words or without compromising on what they want to say. I think that needs, and there has to be certain, I think, digital protocol which needs to be established in the organization, which the employees need to sign up going forward in terms of managing the digital environment. So these things will certainly play a major role in drawing up this framework of the PMS, because as you rightly said, all conversations may not be pleasing to the ears, but then the manager also needs to maybe restrain the emotions a bit and get the communication across what he or she intended to do. And yes, HR partner should be there. I totally agree with you. And this has to be a cultural change in the organization. When you introduce this sort of a PMS, it's a change management process, because as I said, the employees will also need to be changed in terms of their thinking process of what PMS was and what PMS is going to be. Because unless they also embrace and accept this, as you rightly said, there still will be a possibility of misusing it, but that will reduce that dissonance or that possibility to a large extent. That's what my submission would be, sir.
But Sujoy, you mentioned about MSME quite a few times, and I agree that a lot of us will have to accept the reality of technical intervention. What is the cost implication of all this technology? Will they be able to absorb it?
Akhil bhai, I think now with this pandemic, there are a lot of Indian startups who are working on these sort of platforms now. You need not go to a PeopleSoft, you need not go to SuccessFactors, you need not go to SAP, because the organizational complexity or the size may not warrant that.
But the cost.
And the cost, obviously, they might not be able to afford that cost of implementation, of rejigging their processes, which again involves certain costs. So I think a lot of Indian startups are now working on these sort of platforms where these sort of HR process changes can take place, or HR processes can be now on the platform. I think there are companies who are working in, they reach out to us. People Strong is there, but
very expensive.
They are pretty expensive, but there are outfits who have been there in the past. Now they are willing to negotiate. Pankaj and team are willing to negotiate, because you've got, they are willing. Because they are in touch with me. They have a very interesting dashboard of managing, measuring people productivity and performance. You've got Adrenaline, you've got Ramco. These are old players, but you've got a lot of these companies operating out of Hyderabad. There's a company, Darwin Box. They're doing some interesting work. And so there are young startups of people who work in the HR fraternity, who have this tech savvy orientation there, and they're moving out and creating their own teams and supporting organizations. I think there are companies who could be looked at.
So maybe Atul and Indranil, one suggestion, if I can leave with you, maybe in one of our evening meetings, you should call 4 of these service providers, what is called the type that Sujoy is mentioning, not very fancy, not very big, not very expensive. If we can have a meeting with them like this, and let them present what type of service they can offer and what is the cost. I think a lot of us will benefit by that, because right now the image is that everything going technical is very expensive, very elaborate, and requires ERP. So Indranil and Atul, I would leave a thought with you. If you think it's safe, maybe you can organize an evening with those type of service providers, but don't tell them to do a marketing pitch. It's all right. But with some data relevance and example of people who are using it, and how much does it cost per employee for a medium size or a small company?
They give the license per employee. Employee self-service is based on license
per employee. Yeah.
Even for PMS, number of employees you have, they charge you based on the number of employees will undergo.
So Indranil, have a look at that. Maybe that would be
Akhil sir, I'll connect with Sujoy and get back to the forum. Okay. Number one, and it is also, we'll be appreciating that NCR chapter, Delhi NCR chapter, they did a program on SME Karan, and there are the 4 program altogether. I think the objective is to reach out to the SME sectors through this startups. So we need to integrate that particular audience. Thank
It will
you.
be good learning for all of us.
I have to
Oh,
plan something.
definitely. Akhil, that's a very good suggestion, and I think that will also give some concrete steps to be taken, whether it's
Correct.
technology based
Correct. It will
or
give
it's
some concrete step what to do rather than the doubt about whether it can be done.
So let me just sum up now. I mean, actually, Sujoy had already put up some of these slides, so I won't kind of repeat that. But I'd just like to say, Sujoy, I think that's a very refreshing view that I've heard today, because ever since this era of webinars started and lockdowns happened, and I could sense the kind of nervousness in the HR community that jobs are going to go and they may be the first ones to go. So you're the first one who said, no, guys, you are there. Maybe somebody else might need to go. And I think that stems from the continuous performance feedback itself. And I'm quite sure that the line managers, etc., would appreciate a kind of a right-hand man person who's next to, who's an HR business partner, and the HR business partner will now be sitting with the, digitally sitting with the manager and the team rather than in a separate HR department itself. So I think that's a very refreshing view, and I fully appreciate that. Second, about faith, trust, and transparency, I think that's a very big thing that you have mentioned, and I think we need to build on that, and that those metrics or those let's say traits have to be built into the recruitment platform itself. And I think that is, again, going back to Akhil's point of view, that's also a service provider who has to now come up with, let's say, I know it's an AI tool, or it can be some assessment tool that can be done to assess, because you never meet the employee, maybe never physically meet the employee, yet you want him or her to be transparent and trustworthy. So I think that those are things which will be a very good thing to carry forward. And as I mentioned, HR will be a line function. It's a very new idea, and that is what I think we should now progress and share with, as you said, the owners of business and promoters of business. And from the HR side, I think, I mean, my view is that there's a lot of new learning that HR people have to do beyond just, the HR ops. I mean, HR, when you talk about HR, everybody talks about HR ops, salary, payroll, PF, and all the other kind of things. But now to be, let's say, an extension arm of the manager or the team leader, all these places there, because I have seen managers being there, but they don't have the, let's say, the counseling skills, or to be, I mean, when I asked you the question about this hard interventions, it's primarily they burst out into all kinds of language, which later gets nailed, and they later get nailed on them. Whereas an HR person will be doing it, well, he might do the same hard talk, but in a slightly different way, and not use expletives for those kinds of things. So I think that's the sum total of what I could get from you. We have the slides, and this session is being recorded. So I don't want to repeat the same summary slide that you mentioned. So these were three basic takeaways. And of course, now what Atul has said, let's get some service providers to get this thinking across. Okay, look, this is like your user specs for the HR, to enable the HR engagement, to enable the new, whether the new normal, I don't know how long the new normal and the old normal was be there. But the fact of the matter is, if you've got data, then it can be used whether in the old or the new normal.
Yeah, you
but
can
let's
choose.
plan for the data to come together. Yeah.
Sujoy, your presentation had two things which struck out. It was delivered with a lot of conviction. You believe in what you are saying, and it shows. And many of us in HR, if we had that conviction with our line managers, half the battle, Atul, that you mentioned, that they don't realize you're sitting next to them, would be over. Many times, many of us in HR actually go very tentatively. I hope our proposal is accepted. I hope they are happy. I hope they don't fire me. I hope they don't throw me out. But I think today, the way you presented, and second thing, Sujoy, was the examples that you gave. So many examples and illustrations that adds credibility to understanding that this is happening in real life. Obviously, you prepared very well, Sujoy. So I'm very happy that, you know, we could learn this type of, I mean, the BSc is a Ghisa Pita word. I don't believe in it anymore. I mean, we must find a new word for that. But what you mentioned was not BSc. So first time when I saw that, I said, oh my, I mean, why are we bringing up a dead horse again? But you gave it a new twist and very relevant to the coming time. Your emphasis on technology didn't go unnoticed, and you mentioned very nicely, and many of us are shy of technology. One reason I already mentioned to Indranil and Atul, because of cost. Can my company afford it, or is just a fancy toy? Because others are doing it, I have to buy it. And this happened with ERP in 80s. Atul, if you remember, everybody went for SAP and then said, what do I do with this expensive toy now? Thank you very much, Sujoy. Your homework and your delivery was excellent. And Indranil and Atul, thank you for putting this together. And Atul, thank you very much for uninterrupted Zoom facility. That is a very big contribution, sir. And Avani, I thank you for your enthusiasm. And it was a privilege to attend, Sujoy. Privilege to attend.